What was that?
You the guy that goes around debating people about socialism?
Yes.
I definitely recognize you from the internet. I had to connect. You mind if I know it's coronavirus? I gotta shake your head.
That's okay. I don't mind it.
I really do appreciate it. That's hilarious. I saw you, man. I swear to God. I'm like, is that him? I had to ask. I'm usually not like that.
You're on camera now.
Oh, dude, it's nice to meet you. I think your
Sure.
videos are incredible.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I just.
I've seen so much of your stuff, and I think.
Wow, I'm getting recognized in the streets of New York.
Dude, I swear to God, I saw you. I was like, I had to say hi to that guy.
Who'd have thought? Okay, thank you. Where did you see me? In front of over there?
Just now. I just saw you walking.
Oh, just now?
Just now. I saw you walking right past me. I was like, whoa.
Really?
Yeah.
Usually I'm not in front of the cameras, you know,
Right.
so I'm kind of surprised that I'm still recognizable.
Yeah, right.
Obviously by the voice, but that's a different story.
Yeah, when you said hello, I was like, oh, that's him. That's definitely him. Wait, so is there like an event going around today?
Well, there were a bunch of socialists, obviously doing what the socialists do. I'm going to post it
I
for the
just
whole...
saw like Gays Against Guns over there. They were having some
it was another side, because
Yeah.
I was, well, whatever, there's always something happening, but it was more interesting. But most importantly, at the end, there was like a black man, there was, just passing by, and it had nothing to do with the socialists. And we struck up a conversation, and, he happens to be a very common sense guy, and, I hope that a lot of people hear his voice, and not the black person's, person's voice right off the street. I mean, he's just passing by. It's not like you pick and choose who to talk to. I mean, what he was saying makes lots of sense, common sense.
I got you.
So get on my website, YouTube one more time.
I'm subscribed to your page. I watch a lot of your
You'll
videos.
see it.
Yeah. Do you mind if I take a selfie with you? Like,
Listen, who am I? What do you call it? A celebrity?
Yeah, dude, my friends like your videos too. I just want to say I saw you.
Fantastic, sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
My
Nice
pleasure.
to meet you,
Anytime.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, I will. Absolutely.
My
I see this.
My parents came from communist Poland, and I'm not.
Poland, cześć.
Cześć.
Dziękuję bardzo.
I'm not about this either, and I'm sick of what's happening in this country.
It's disgusting. And, I'm scared even to think what would happen if Trump loses. He can't lose.
And people don't get how serious this really is.
No.
They think it's a joke and how quickly
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
turn and-
It's like, they come here with these stupid banners with just words about socialism. But they never lived socialism, and your parents did. I did. They have no clue what a horror story it is. At the most, they talk about, and I brought it up when I was speaking with this black gentleman, that we talk about Black Lives Matter. I came up with another motto for the socialists: no lives matter.
Exactly.
Because literally, no lives matter to the socialists, and they still don't matter. No lives matter to socialists. Well, say want socialism, you better embrace the motto: no lives matter.
I'm a big fan of history. I study this stuff, and it comes down to ignorance. People don't know anything. And when you tell them, like, listen, this group is Marxist or this group is a communist group, they don't know how dangerous that really means, like how dangerous that really is.
No, they don't. And even if they read about it, say, my grandmother, for example, she's an Auschwitz survivor, okay? So I've been to Poland several times, and I traveled, visited a whole bunch of death camps over there. No matter how hard, and I met one of the only two survivors of a Treblinka death camp. Only 2 out of 1 million, 2 survived. And it happened when I was in Treblinka to bump into one of them. No matter how hard they try to tell us the horrors of being in the death camp, we can't relate it. We can't relate it because you're trying to sort of juxtapose it against your worst experiences.
Right.
But it's impossible. No matter how hard I would try to understand, even though, I was over there, I watched a bunch of documentaries, I still can't really. It's impossible to, because the horrors are so unimaginable. Just like the word suggests, it's unimaginable. Unimaginable. So when it comes to socialists, it's the same thing. They throw words around: socialism, communism. Well, they talk about some victims of socialism. To them, like, a million here, a million there.
The way they disregard it is the most disgusting thing ever, because they protest, like, let's say, a criminal getting shot by the police, but they make light of the gulag system.
Exactly. But now stop and think about. Wait a minute. Black Lives Matter. Well, of course they do. But in socialism, no lives matter. So, are you going to change Black Lives Matter for No Lives Matter system?
They're very good at manipulating language and
well, they're trying, and they can try whatever they want. Again, it's a free country; they can say whatever they want. God bless it. But it's incumbent on us to analyze things, because we're supposed to have common sense. We have to be better than that. And of course, it's unfortunately a lot of people do not have common sense. So a lot of people well, not capable of analyzing things, or they simply don't have time, and actually not supposed to do that. We're supposed to have this filter, unbiased filter called mass media. And that has changed dramatically for the worse. They're supposed to keep politicians, everybody's feet to the fire, honestly, reporting of what's going on. Now, as Trump absolutely rightfully says that the mass media has become fake news and the enemy of the people. I wholeheartedly agree with him, unfortunately. And it's so sad. It's so sad coming to this country. Me getting, let's say, 1984, Orwell's 1984. Incidentally, in 1984, I was giving this book translated into Russian for literally like 1 or 2 nights. I was staying up like a couple of days trying to finish it from cover to cover because I had to give it back. And obviously it was dangerous to do it. I mean, speaking of getting information in a dangerous way, here you have all the freedoms in the world, and this mass media is diluting its own citizen. It is so sad.
People don't appreciate anything, and what they're cheering for is so... It's just horrifying, man.
It is. I'm scared. As I was driving over here, I was kind of shaken. I didn't know what to expect, and it's just. I remember when I finished reading 1984, I was so mad, and I never forget. I was walking. I'm a gentle, polite person. I would hold the door and stuff like that, even though it's not really common in the USSR. But I still would do it. But after I finished reading it and recognizing 1984 as being the country, fictitious country that Orwell was referring to, being the country I actually live in reality, in flesh and blood, I was so angry. I was just.
I know that Orwell was a socialist.
But let me finish. The thought. So I was walking along the streets, so angry. It's like I wouldn't let anybody go. I was like bumping shoulders with others because it's like here I'm the only one who can see the light. And there's zombies all around me. Zombies.
Relatable.
At least here, well, maybe at worst, half a population is zombies. Half. It's still a significant number. But it definitely does not exceed more than about 50%
so you go
roughly.
around and talk to random people, right? I know you, but besides talking to just socialists, when you...
I'm talking to you. I'm going to put it on YouTube if you don't mind.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I would have looked better, man. I would have worn a better shirt if I'm going to be honest.
It's okay. It's the thought that counts.
Okay. My question to you is,
sure.
The average normal person, do we have hope? Or
do we have hope in America?
Do Americans have hope for the future? Or are we so far gone that we're just lost?
Well, look.
Because you do this a lot more than me. Like, you talk to people all the time on the street. I'm just curious, based off what you see.
I just spoke with a black person, okay, who happens to have common sense. So if you talk to people from that perspective, you see that, well, lots of people do actually have common sense. A lot of what's happening in the country is completely blown out of proportion. I mean, think about it. The what's happening in Portland, what's happening in Kenosha, or a few other places, it's horrible, obviously. But this is the country.
Even here, when I'm driving past, seeing all the boarded up buildings, all the boarded up stores.
Well, but that's like this, Black Lives Matter.
Seattle here, but
Well, but again, it's New York City, of course. This is one of those places. Right. Hello.
Of course.
but geographically, it's a very small area. Very small area. And again, think about it this way. A lot of people are afraid. I mean, as an analogy, a lot of people are afraid of flying, right? Thinking that, if the plane crashes, I'm dead. Well, of course, you're dead. But so are 40 to 45,000 people that die on the roads every single day. If you stop and think for just one statistic, wait a minute. Flying is the safest mode of transportation. But people do not have a common sense, so I'm trying to bring 2 points. Don't have common sense to analyze, wait a minute.
Right.
Yes, you will die, of course, but what are the chances? Much higher than compared to driving a car. And the second thing, do you see front news, a car accident, 40,000 people dead every year on the roads of America, flashing, an accident here, a person killed here, a person here. Right. No, I mean, unless there's something really big.
It's not highlighted, people don't really care. But
right.
The media just highlights all this stuff.
One small plane crashes, and it's front news.
Right.
So my point is, when there's this kind of flashpoint in Kenosha and some other places, and it's the front news, people get an impression that, this is happening around the country. Right. I tend to think that it's not exactly the case. At least positive me. Another positive me thinks that, well, after all, Trump did get elected in 2016 against all odds. Statistically, it's much easier for a sitting president And there are plenty of precedents, such precedents, that an incumbent president usually gets reelected.
Right.
It's very, very seldom. Let's say George Bush the senior lost, but only because of Ross Perot, who sucked away 20% of the votes. As long as there are no independent characters in the mix.
But I don't think there's going to be any of this.
No, there are none. Of course, we know it by now.
Yeah.
So chances are that he will be, reelected. But it is very, very sad as to what's going on with the mass media and impressionable youth. I mean, that's another horror story. How they, I mean, one of the speakers over there is a professor. I was looking for the word. Professor of history.
You saw it right here?
Yeah, over there. One of the actually organizer. You can see that he's the organizer.
Professor for where? Do you know?
History. I think he said what the university is from. I'll try to find him. When he finished his speech, I came up to him and tried to ask a couple of questions. Well, he asked. He's like pointing to the camera. He asked my name. I said, my name is Vladimir. He says, "Oh, I know," and he walked away. "No, thank you," and he walks away.
Right.
Because now I recall that I tried to talk to him several years ago. About 4 years ago, during the Trump campaign, he was standing in front of Hyatt Hotel on 42nd Street. And no, not 42nd Street. Yeah, was it? I think 42nd Street. Yeah, for sure, 42nd Street. So, and I asked him a couple of questions, and it was the same reaction. These people, I mean, they can be so easily, the ideology can be so easily defeated in a simple debate with just a couple of common sense questions. It will fall apart.
That's why they rely on all the censorship. They don't want to have
exactly.
As soon as you open up a discussion,
exactly.
It's
exactly right. It's like it will fall down like a house of cards.
Right.
Like the Soviet Union fell down, like all the Eastern European so-called communist countries fell apart. Because their entire ideology is based on it. It's the house of cards. Dangerous, of course, murderous house of cards, but a house of cards nonetheless. So, now you'll be on YouTube. You can watch yourself.
It got me nervous now, man. Wasn't expecting this, but yeah.
Well, it's a pleasant surprise, no?
Seriously, like I said, I saw you, I had to say hello, because I really respect what you do, and I think your videos are great. And
well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, because people like you make it, it possible to spread the word.
And it's the best. I really like when you talk to certain people, and you catch them saying something truthful. I remember once some guy said people like you will be put in the camps or something.
Yeah, that's right. We'll throw your ass in the labor camp.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. So when that kind of stuff comes out, you realize what it's really about. Behind all the propaganda, behind all the lies, behind all their misdirection.
That's right.
I really appreciate when you reveal on your videos how these people actually think, like what the plans actually are in the future.
That's exactly right. I mean, okay, you speak all these words. Let's abolish capitalism. Let's make socialism. But after just one or two probing questions. Well, great, but specifically how? And I always ask the same question. What's your plan? I mean, because
right. I remember that one video you had.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so socialism. We have socialism. We took over the workplace.
Yeah.
What's next?
What's next?
And they never have any answer.
Exactly.
It's like, well, they're gonna say, oh, the boss is gonna step down. What if the boss isn't gonna step down? They're not gonna just say, oh, we're gonna kill him. They're never gonna be that honest with you. But we can all read between the lines here. For anyone that
exactly.
ever studied any of this stuff. So
that's right. Well, let's see. We only 2 months away from the election. It's a very, very important election. That's for sure.
Right.
Like any election, actually, 4 years ago was crucial election. But this
I was in
one
college
is
during that time. I was in I went to a very liberal university and
very liberal. Name me one that is not.
Exactly. But yeah, so I'm actually from I'm not from New York. I'm from New Jersey.
Well, my business is in New Jersey, in Linden.
So I went to a very liberal university, and I was exposed to politics without me even wanting to be in it, because it was the peak of the Trump election, and I heard a lot of crazy stuff.
But isn't it disgusting? Isn't it disgusting? You go to university, and God forbid, you tell professor that you disagree with his or her political views. I mean, that flies in the face of what makes America the greatest nation on earth. I mean, when you stop and think, why is America the greatest nation on earth? And this is one of the most fundamental principles that is based on freedom of speech. Nothing is more important than freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of thought. Like I said, I lived in a place where there's none of it. None of it. Absolutely everything was controlled by the government from cradle to grave. Absolutely, 100%. Everything. And here you go to colleges, which are supposed to be actually liberalism is a good thing in its original meaning. But like you said, that they're twisting
The way it's corrupted and twisted is
exactly. Now all of a sudden, liberalism has become a curse word, a bad word, and unfortunately, it's true. I mean, they perverted so many progressivism, for example. I mean, what's wrong with progressivism? It's to be progressive. Oops! All of a sudden, progressivism in reality is socialism. How can we deal with that?
Nobody sees that. Nobody really.
No. Don't say nobody. I mean, this is America of 320 or almost 30 million people. So at least half of us. I mean, go us
You know
out.
what I mean? I don't mean that. I don't think all hope is lost. But with what I see, just with people my age, right? Because the youth is the future. And what I see from kids my own age, from people my age, it's scary. How easily they latch onto things without knowing anything about it.
That's true.
And
that's true. I saw it in my own niece, for example. It's like when she was growing up and she was close to me, for instance, and she was, a little younger. When we had more influence over her, she had was thinking within the same kind of line of thought that we did. And then she went to another school. She was going to private school. She went to public school. And now she's going to the university, and I see a dramatic change in her thinking. Actually, let me make this as a background.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. That's a good background.
With the bank too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Closed. Yeah, that's what's going to happen when they take over.
Yeah.
Banks closed, businesses closed. That's exactly right. So yeah, there's a huge influence, obviously, by the professors and mass media. But hey, we're going to resist that. I mean, what gives hope again, though? Mid-America.
How often do you get labeled something like a fascist or a Nazi
Me?
just for being against socialism?
Almost never. No. Another thing, actually, by the way, speaking of which, if you look at the back of my car, you'll see all the pro-Trump stickers blasted in the back of.
Happened to your car?
No.
Nobody ever hurt you?
Never.
Damage your car?
Normally, when I walk around, I don't walk around. It's only because of this event. I want them, to see right away, what my affiliation is. Otherwise, you would always see pro-Trump. I mean, depending on who is running, either pro-Trump, against Obama, pro-Bush, again, depending on the political situation, T-shirts. Always. I wear politics. I drive politics.
You're pretty brave wearing that around Manhattan.
But that's the whole point. There's nothing brave about it, because doing that for, I would say decades by now. I would say that only once, ironically, in the Polish neighborhood of Greenpoint, where I used to have business before I moved to New Jersey, they ripped my anti-Obama stickers off. That's the worst that ever happened in maybe like 2 decades.
Wow.
And whenever people see my T-shirt, the only reaction that I get is thumbs up. It's a conversation starter. To the point, by the way, we were vacationing about a month or two ago in Corning, New York, and we were staying at the hotel. And when I wear this T-shirt, always conversation start. The conversation start. I'm talking about Trump, T-shirt. There was a gentleman who happened to be in West Berlin, who actually saw inside East Berlin, and we talked about this and that. I gave him my card. They left the restaurant. They're not staying at the hotel. They just went to dine at the hotel. They left it before us, and when it was turn for us to pay, the server said, "Oh, your bill is covered." It's like,
nice.
What do you mean? Well, don't worry, somebody paid your bill.
Awesome.
It's the first time that ever happened to me. I mean, I don't need that. I mean, I was a little bit embarrassed, to be honest with you. It never happens to me. But it just, tells you what sort of free action I get by wearing this T-shirt. Somebody's paying your bill.
Really?
So, no, it's mostly positive reaction. And people that do disagree, they either avoid the eyes or give me like a dirty look, but that's about it. That's the worst that happened.
They're not used to confrontation? They're not used to anyone challenging them? Like people you said like that might disagree with you.
I don't think that's the reason. I think that generally most Americans probably, I would put percentage as high as 95%, if not higher, deep inside do perfectly understand and honor my right to express my views. That is a fundamentally American thing, and they respect that. That's what I think is happening. And again, when you see mass media, when somebody's punching someone or throwing the hat off, a MAGA hat, it's an aberration.
I think both sides do make it seem like it's worse than it really is. We've been stuck inside for so long. We're stuck on the internet. We're stuck in our little echo chambers.
Yeah,
but
but
we think it's worse than it really is. But like you said, if you haven't had any negative experiences
no,
all this
never,
time walking around with
ever,
a shirt on,
ever,
especially
no.
around New York City.
No, never, ever, ever, ever. And at some points, let's say when I was kind of my business was going around parking the car every place. If I had a chance to park the car in the most visible place, so that as many people, like in the Bronx, for example, as many people will see the bumper stickers, I would do it.
Nice.
You know, and nothing ever, ever, ever happened, neither to my car, not to my person. So you must not be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid about. There's nothing to be afraid in exercising your God-given rights to express your opinion in this freest country in the world. If not in America, then where?
That's true.
You know?
There's not many else places to run.
Well, there are none. Of course.
Nowhere else to go.
No, there's no other place to go. Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to freedom of speech.
To who?
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech?
There's
absolutely.
Really no other country on earth that has anything close to what we do.
No.
I have so many friends in Europe, friends in Poland, feel like freedom of speech is a concept that they don't really understand fully.
That's right.
They don't have freedom of speech in Europe. You can't really speak the same way about, let's say, the government or the way they talk about like Trump as a dictator, right?
Yeah.
What kind of a dictator lets you just make fun of him all the time on Instagram and Facebook and social media and Twitter? You know what I mean?
Well, you know what's funny? These socialist protesters who were claiming that Trump was, and I was kind of struck by this admission, that kind of Trump is a fascist dictatorship. She admitted, well, of course it's not fascist yet, because if it were, we would be sitting here. Yeah, exactly.
In the town square, like literally in the town square.
Exactly. So at least they had enough common sense to admit that. Well, it's not fascist yet; it's about to become. Well,
okay, I'm still waiting on it. Like
yeah.
almost 4 years now. It hasn't happened yet, but maybe if he gets reelected, maybe then. But no.
What's your name?
Michael.
Michael. Is your real name, or is it you have a Polish name?
No, it's Michael. My parents gave me an English name. Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
My sister got a cool Polish name. I got stuck with Michael. I would have liked a nice.
Well, I'm stuck with the Russian name. I hate it, but hey, what can I do?
Vladimir, not a fan of Vladimir.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Why? What would you prefer to be named?
Well, nothing but Vladimir. Anything but Vladimir. It's like so typical Russian name. But yeah, I wanted to change. I changed my last name. Well, not changed, but kind of corrected it. But when it came to my first name, I was thinking about changing it at first. But then I figured my last name is Jaffe, as you know. But then I figured, well, what if I become my foreign friends in the USSR used to call me Walter, for example. So if I become Walter Jaffe, and obviously I still have an accent. People would think like there's something wrong in this combination. Walter Jaffe, perfectly American first and last name, and the guy has an accent. I figured, you know what? Let me just skip Vladimir. So this way, the minute you say Vladimir,
you have some authority when you talk about the USSR to people. You know, my name is Vladimir. I was raised in the USSR. That has some kind of weight to it, you know.
That's why I hope and I believe these videos are so popular, because there's one thing when there's one person reading a book about socialism, debating another person who wants socialism, versus someone who didn't live USSR. As you know, when I was a little kid, I was 29. So by 29,
you were an adult. You saw everything.
Exactly.
You knew what it was about. It wasn't,
absolutely.
You weren't a little kid,
I wasn't a little kid. I went through school and college and work and being summoned to KGB and being pursued by the KGB, as I'm learning, a little bit later. Yes. So it was bad. It was only not by miracle, but I guess timing, that just at the right time Chernobyl happened. There was kind of the first crack, literal and figurative crack in the system. It was 1984, I believe, and then Gorbachev came to power. No, I'm sorry, it happened 86, what I'm talking about. 86, it was under Gorbachev. So, and then Reagan and Thatcher and John Paul II, Polish, by the way, Pope. So they all came together to fight, and he was very much anti-communist, that he should be, unlike, let's say, today's socialist Pope. So they together make the Soviet Union collapse in the end. It was, quote, colossus on clay legs, always. But it just needed this extra push.
Right.
And that's what they did, and the Soviet Union was no more, and I'm here, and the KGB kind of relented a little bit. They were busy, I guess, with other stuff, or just stopped pursuing, I guess, people who were actually for the things that eventually Soviet Union became. Not socialist.
Now, were you active politically in the Soviet Union before?
Yes. Yeah, I was, of course. I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
But there was no YouTube. There was no
No.
social media. So what would you be doing? What kind of things did you do?
I'll give you an example. It was very dangerous. You know Mike Farrell. Mike Farrell from MASH.
Sounds so familiar.
Yeah, from MASH.
Right.
He's like an old serial about war in Vietnam. It turns out he is very, very popular in America. Obviously, I had no idea who he was, what he did, what he was left or right. Back then, of course, I thought that all Americans are the same, and I was kind of surprised at times when I would say how much I loved Reagan, and my American friends was kind of squirm and say all this bad words about it. I was like, why aren't we on the same page? But I sort of dismissed it. I mean, whatever. I wasn't paying much attention. So here's Mike Farrell. I have a relative who lived in Colorado, and he gave information to kind of a group of people who traveled from Colorado to Moscow so that I would show them around. And turns out that one of the persons who was among them was Mike Farrell. Wow. So he was there with his wife, Shelley Fabry. They were in my own apartment, and I was trying to give this idiot, tell him at great risk to myself, tell him about the dangers of socialism and stuff like that. So assuming that we're on the same page, little did I know that when I came to America, I sent him a letter. He replied to my letter. He was in New York. We actually met. And we were sitting in the cafe in mid-Manhattan, and he was telling me this story about Samantha Smith, a little girl who sent a letter to Andropov, who was the head of KGB, then became the general secretary, and her tragic death in a small plane. And I was like, but you know that there's so many Jewish kids that sent letters to Andropov, and they went unanswered. And they were in much worse situation, that he's using her as a pawn in his geopolitical games. He didn't get it. He wanted to make a movie about her and glorify her, and by extension, obviously, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, headed by Andropov at that time. So to getting back to answering your question, what I was doing, then I had, let's say, an opera singer who wanted to escape from the USSR. So because he was not Jewish, back then only Jews were allowed to emigrate. He was trying to
Israel?
Well, allegedly for Israel. We're traitors. We're traitors to the communism and socialism, and we're idiots. I mean, who would want to leave the Soviet paradise? Just making sure that I still have battery. So I had a news conference in my apartment in Moscow with foreign, and I still have pictures of that. I think it was Deutsche Welle, one of the German TV companies. It was so dangerous to do. I did it anyway. Then I would go to a synagogue, for example, not so much because of religion, but because, you can find your fellow Jews and stuff like that, and kind of, support the kind of Jewish thing, because it was extremely anti-Semitic place. I mean, Black Lives Matter. We're saying here there's a racism over here. Tell me about anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union. It was much, much worse. Here, a black person became the president, or half black, became president of this country. It would never, ever, ever happen to a Jew in the Soviet Union, not even close to the corridors of power in the Soviet Union. So I wanted to become a medical doctor. I mean, my personal example, I said, no, you're a Jew, forget about it. I mean, not in those specific words, but, basically that's what happened. So, then I was giving interview, I remember, to BBC World Service. I spoke English back then. I would kind of take American tourists. I would spot them in the street right away. I would take them, give them a tour around the country and explain what was actually happening inside the USSR. I mean, looking back, I was like, holy crap. Today, I probably wouldn't have done 1/10 of what I was doing back then. But, I was young.
That's scary. That scares me just hearing about it.
1985. I ended up being invited, quote unquote, to Lubyanka KGB headquarters, and I told you what saved me, the timing. But if not that, I wouldn't be speaking with you right now. I probably would have been dead, somewhere in Gulag. I don't think I would have
known about it.
Oh, well, and if they did, it's just a statistic. What's a big deal? One of millions, not a big deal. Digging for uranium in the mines somewhere in Siberia. We're expendable. No lives matter.
Well, my grandpa was in the Gulag.
Gulag, oh, there we go. In Poland?
He's one of my grandpa was actually, we don't know what he is because his last name is kind of weird, so he's probably a Ukrainian or a Russian.
Uh-huh.
When he was a little kid, he was sent out to Kazakhstan.
Oh my God.
The Gulag system. So, I'm not one of those sensitive people that really care if people make light of events or I'm not that kind of person. But it's just sick how communists today will tell you, like, oh, we're gonna send, how they mock you. Oh, we're gonna send you to the gulag. Oh, you're gonna go to the camp. I hear that all the time online. And even in person, people say that kind of stuff. So
I met people. A friend of mine, by the way, speaking of gulag, one friend of mine who kind of rented a room in my apartment right before I left, and he remained there after I had left. He spent, I think, 3 years in the gulag. He was a sociologist. Think about it, just for commenting yet another new Soviet constitution. All he did was to comment. Comment. That was it. He was sentenced to 3 years. Another gentleman who I met recently, and I'm yet to post my entire interview with him, he spent 15 years. He was lucky that he did not receive a death sentence, because some of his people that I want to use the word comrade. I mean, not exactly comrades, but people that he wanted to hijack a plane and escape from the USSR. 2 of them were murdered by the Soviets. All he wanted is to be free, basically. He spent 15. I mean, think about 15 years in a gulag. So, I know, not fortunately from personal experience, even though I was pretty close to that, but from experience of others who actually were over there. And by the way, part of my job later days, and that's kind of saved me from the KGB, was traveling around the country with a quite famous singer, Senchina was her name, in the USSR, which entailed me traveling as far as Vladivostok, Magadan area, and the Soviets wouldn't let me go, but it's a totally separate story. So I managed to make it anyway. That's where all the gulags were. So I don't remember actually seeing the gulags, but most of the people who live over there today are the survivors of gulags, most of them. And at least I saw, kind of got an idea what the environment was like.
Did you ever speak to anyone local?
Where?
Over there, like when you would go to those cities or go that far out. Have you ever spoken to people that actually survived the gulag?
Probably I did. Honestly, I just don't remember. And then these people just clam up. They don't want to talk about it. No, but I spoke here in America. That's that's for sure. So, but I do remember when we were in Gorky, which was back then called Gorky, now it's called Nizhny Novgorod. There was, think about the Nobel winner in physics, the father of the nuclear or atomic bomb, Sakharov. He was exiled to home confinement in Gorky. And we were in Gorky with the concert and stuff like that. And I just walk around and ask just regular folks, did you hear the name? Yeah, we kind of heard the name. So do you know that he's in your town? What do you think? And that's how the Russians think. They don't dig deep. They believe Soviet propaganda. How does the saying go? Goes sink, hook, and sinker, something like that.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, hook, line, and sinker. And their response was, if the government sent him to Gorky, he must have deserved it. That's exactly their response. Exactly, because they trust the Soviet TV, they trust Soviet propaganda wholeheartedly, 100%. They never question it.
Appeal to authority is very strong, and it applies to this day.
Even today, that's exactly right.
Oh, I saw on the TV, it must be true.
Yeah.
I read it on the internet from a major news network, must be true.
But that's the difference. I mean, back then, there were truly no alternative sources for information. And even if there were, you would be in trouble, big trouble, getting to them. I want to make sure that I still have some juice left. I have more batteries, I just have to replace the battery. But here, what amazes me that in the USSR today, they're still supporting. A lot of people support socialism. Even today in the USSR, even though, they can get any information that they want to. Many people speak.
Okay, so I want to ask you this. There's a very common thing communists in America do today is always bring up these polls where they go to Russia, they ask these old Russians,
correct.
Do you miss socialism?
Yes, and they do.
The USSR?
Yeah, exactly.
70 or 60, whatever the number
and
is.
that's correct.
I'm not disputing it. They want it back. So the reason is like, do they miss socialism or do they miss, I don't know, the national pride that they had, or do they miss what? Because they definitely don't miss Marxist-Leninism. I don't think they miss that. That's not the thing that they're actually craving. Or could it be? Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, let me replace the battery.
Sure.
So let me pause for 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. So here's the post before I change the battery. And I'll be more than happy to answer this
Sure,
very
sure.
valid question.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a fresh battery. So we can talk for another maybe 2 hours. So here's the thing about these people wanting USSR back. Let me start probably with the younger generation. See, younger generation, just like the socialists over here who never lived and never experienced socialism, for some reason they think that if we were to bring socialism, then they would be able to keep their supermarkets. And this is something that is incompatible with socialism. For some reason they think that if they live in socialism again, they would be able to travel abroad, which is incompatible with the socialist system. For some reason, these youngsters think that if we bring socialism back, that they'll be able to live wherever they want, they can buy cars, they for crying out loud, can have bananas and tomatoes in winter. Unimaginable, unheard of luxuries. Only people in Moscow, I happen to live in Moscow, occasionally would be like, especially Christmas time. This is the only time of the year when you get oranges, for instance.
My parents would tell us they would get really excited getting oranges for Christmas.
See? So word for word,
yeah.
Oranges for Christmas. That's
They'd be
exactly
so happy.
right.
The talk of the town. We got oranges.
See? So they don't understand. If you want socialism, no freedoms, no travels, no hard currencies, no supermarkets, and no oranges. Well, maybe once a year if you're lucky.
No shopping malls,
no shopping
designer brand jeans.
None of that. No, jeans, unheard of luxury in the USSR. Okay, so that's kind of the younger generation because I mean they're just stupid. They have no other explanation other than stupidity, because it's so easy to kind of find information. I mean, it's right there. Ask your parents. I mean, yeah, you lived in the USSR. I mean, were there any supermarkets? No. Could you travel? No. Could you buy an apartment? No. Could you buy a car and heard of
My grandma
luxury?
still lives in their same commie block today.
See, there you go. Yeah.
In the 70s. To this day, she still lives there. Very tiny little apartment.
That's exactly right. Now, when it comes to older generation, so the problem with older generation is under communist system, everybody was equal. Everybody was equally miserable and poor. Mm-hmm. So now you have a neighbor who used to be as miserable as you are, but all of a sudden they're riding a nice car, or they bought a nice apartment, they're moving up a social ladder, an economic ladder.
Successful small business,
or whatever. And by the way, business is totally non-existent. You go to jail for 3 years for making a profit. Profit is completely, totally illegal, as you know, in USSR. So that's another thing. So, and they're just envious. They're envious that other people are having something, and they got none. They got absolutely nothing. And the problem is their mindset. And I have to confess, when I just came to this country, even though I was very much attuned to the West because I met a lot of foreigners, I was learning English every single day, because one thing I knew I would need for sure is the language. Right. I had no idea what I would do in America, but at least I knew that that's the language that America would speak, and I had the better I know it, the better chances I would get in this country. So, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought.
When you came to America, you had trouble adapting to America.
Yeah. So, and the mindset, right? The mindset was that even despite all of that, I still sort of kind of got accustomed that there's a government who would solve at least some of the problems for me, and that your employer owes you something kind of attitude, or maybe I'll do only as much as I'm getting paid, like following the principles. We pretend that you pay, and I pretend that I work.
What's the phrase they have? We pretend to work, you pretend to pay us.
Exactly.
Like that,
that's what I just said. Exactly. So, and that mindset is very much prevalent over there. Well, in truth, the system that they have over there is not really a market economy per se. Free market. I should add the word free market economy. It's a kleptocracy. That's basically what they have over there. If you ask me what kind of system they have over there. However, you still, can do things, and you have opportunities over there that were completely non-existent in the. Just didn't exist. They simply did not exist. In fact, they would send you to those proverbial gulags if you try to make money, to make a buck or a ruble. So, and that's again to answer your question, why they want socialism is because in socialism, you basically do as little. You pretend that you work, and yet you kind of live the miserable life, but like everybody else, and they miss those days. So that's kind of my answer to this kind of question. Why such a large number of the Russians still want socialism? So do you think it makes sense?
It makes total sense.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Any more questions?
I'm just getting camera shy. I'm not sure what else to say. Now, I would have had so much to say if I would have been prepared for this.
Well, just whatever comes to your mind.
I guess it's relatable to what demographic of college kids today would be most likely to embrace socialism. Because I'm in the science industry, like the science field, more scientific stuff, engineering and stuff. So there wasn't too many socialists in my department in my college. It's not really easy to put socialist propaganda in, let's say, a math class.
That's right. Yeah.
You have all these kids today majoring in all these garbage majors.
Mm-hmm.
And they're blaming the system. They're blaming capitalism. They're blaming America for not giving them a high-paying job when they graduate college, majoring in absolute garbage that you should have no business going to college for, getting $100,000 in debt.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. What I do know is it turns out that the people who I admire the most are the ones who live in mid-America. Mm-hmm. Those common sense, usually not college-educated, true Americans. I love getting out of big cities. I just we vacationed in Maine, for instance, Maine and New Hampshire, partially New Hampshire, and we covered, literally maybe thousands of miles crisscrossing the states, and most of the signs now it's election year, and that again should give us all hope. Out of maybe 100, if not 100, pro-Trump signs, I saw only 2 Biden. Only 2, I was counting, 2. So I just don't understand how he can lose. And these people have common sense. And
they are the ones that get attacked the most. You have this idea of like the rural, uneducated, like Trump supporters, like an uneducated moron, right?
Yeah,
that's the idea. That's the narrative they're going with. And
Christian, deplorables, gun cleaning, like this infamous Clinton's definition of us.
Just talk to I feel like people don't talk enough. And if you just speak with these people,
they make comments. I love talking to them.
No one is as hateful as they really think. If you were to sit down with some guy from Iowa, why he supports Donald Trump, it's not because he hates other people or he wants to, like you said, common sense. This is normal, everyday people.
Normal, everyday, common sense Americans, gentle, kind, helping. This is the America that I love.
Families with jobs that care about their well-being and the future of their country.
And knowledgeable. Mind you, knowledgeable. I had a friend who he was doing all his life, basically, and he's probably in his late 50s now. He is working, and again, all his life, he is working at the factory, making these, clay pots filled with this, soil. So you would think, what would this person know? This is all that he has been doing. It's such a pleasure talking to this guy because he knows so much. He uses common sense. He reasons, and there's virtually nothing I would disagree with him on. There's hardly any subjects I would disagree with him on. And he talked to these people look, I just, and again, when you watch the videos, I'm gonna upload this my interview with this black fella. When you come up to just anyone probably off the street and start unless you're an ideologue, and you start breaking it down to common sense, almost everybody would agree with you. Almost everybody. The problem with most people, ideologues, they're not really speaking to you. they are spouting propaganda. They're trying to memorize what their
They're going
professors.
off their script, and
They're at a loss.
They're not using their own thought process.
And
They're repeating what people have told them before.
and they're at a loss because they surround themselves. And interestingly, like there is a very small group of people. I recognize faces since not that I obviously go, attend all these rallies all the time. I'll go insane, of course, but a couple of times a year that I do, I see the same faces. So that's kind of another good news. There's a very, very small group of people, fringe, very, very small fringe group of people who espouse these idiotic ideas like, abolish capitalism, for example, And of course, like you said, dig a little deeper, and then what? Well, we only sort of step one.
Especially in Manhattan, maybe communism in some middle America, Midwest state could work. But what are you going to do in Manhattan? Like, how do you apply socialism to Manhattan? What would you do? When you ask people these questions, they have no answer.
No answer, because there are none.
We're just going to take over. Workers are going to rule the workplace. Oh, okay.
How's that going to work?
Like anyone that has ever had a job and seen how people work and how employees actually operate on a day-to-day basis, well, that's not going to work whatsoever.
No. And again, it's not like we're talking about some new kind of experiment, something that never been tried. I mean, for crying out loud, for 100 years, and most importantly, 100 million deaths, you still haven't learned a lesson? I mean,
well, you know what they would tell you? It wasn't real.
Of course, no, it wasn't true communism. I know. Yeah, no true communism. It was not true socialism. But we exactly this time around, we'll do it differently. Well, you're not going to kill everybody. You're only going to kill maybe white people or something. I mean, again, with these latest mottos, no lives matter. I like my new motto. No lives matter in socialism.
You got to trademark that. You got to get some t-shirts or something, get a hat or something.
Socialism equals no lives matter. And it's true.
I just wish people knew that. It comes down to sheer ignorance and not being educated enough to actually know what they're talking about.
I'm sorry, say it again?
It's sheer ignorance. It comes down to them just not knowing what they're talking about. I don't mean like the actual like socialist professors. I mean the followers, the people that latch onto it, that join, that they'll repost the thing on Instagram. They'll go to the marches. They'll say the words, but don't really know the roots of what these people are about.
It's just slogans. I mean, it's just as deep as a slogan itself. Just one-liners. That's about it. I mean, really. And again, I mean, by watching the videos, you saw that you dig just teeny tiny, a little bit deeper, and that's it. They have nothing to say, or the handlers say, "Oh, don't talk to him." Like this professor. I mean, here's an opportunity. Okay, you wanna spread the word? Well, probably you know by now that I have my channel. I mean, popular or not, if 100 people will watch it, well, here you go. You don't have to come over here where only 20 or 30 supporters surrounded you. You have an opportunity to speak your mind. I mean, it's a free country. Speak your mind. Maybe 100 people or 1,000. I mean, after all, I have 80,000, almost 80,000 subscribers by now. I mean, here's an opportunity for you to tell that many people your ideas. No, he didn't want to talk to me. I mean, so maybe there is some, if a lefty were come up to me and start asking me questions, which I did, by the way, in one of the videos, one of the events, he started my questions. I was happy to answer, about fascism. I told him my mind. I'm surprised, actually, that he included in his so-called documentary, which he did. He deleted all the comments, though, but he did include it. It's like maybe a minute long. So I wouldn't shy. I mean, by all means, of course I say my mind, speak my mind. Here's an opportunity, whoever it is, I don't care. I'm here at the protest to speak my mind. Here's an opportunity, especially if you know me. I mean, Vladimir, he walks away. So probably he knows a thing or two about me by now.
Right.
So they're cowards. They're cowards. They know that they have their theory has no legs to stand on. Plain and simple, right? I mean, using common sense again.
Any bit of scrutiny and they crumble.
They do. Every single time. Oh, see, and there are these people over there. This woman, she was fired from work. Then she decided she was among this group. She doesn't speak English. And her daughter was speaking in her defense with the socialists.
Oh, you met these people before?
Well, they were with this group. And now they're so happy taking this picture. They want to bring, she came, since she doesn't speak English, obviously she's an immigrant. And what future does she see for her daughter? Socialism, really? And she made her daughter speak at this socialist rally. And they're happily running around, walking around with the signs, pro-socialist signs. I mean, what good does she do to her own daughter? What future? I mean, she escaped the hellhole to come to America and what? To turn America into the hellhole her mother escaped from?
I'm sorry, did you say where she was from?
I don't know what country, I didn't ask, but some Spanish-speaking country for sure. I mean, just stop and think about your daughter. I mean, really, you're involving your daughter into this?
And the saddest part is how many people would actually want to come here and, you know, be pro-American and appreciate all the values and rights and stuff that we have. And you get people like this that...
Well, see, the most important thing at the end of the day, and it's a bit of a good news, is not so much jumping around with these posters and then see it out the election day, which many youngsters do. The most important thing, and that's how the system for now and hopefully forever will work in America, on election day, we go, we vote, we fairly and squarely elect our leader, and the case is closed. You can jump and scream and yell all you want after all the votes have been counted. Well, here's a legitimately elected leader of the country, leader of the free world. That's it, plain and simple. And another good thing, something that I'm kind of noticing, being involved in politics, I mean, as long as I have, there were exactly 10 years ago in 2010, there was a Tea Party movement. 2 years after Obama got elected, and I was heavily involved in this movement, Tea Party demonstrations. I traveled to Washington, and a lot of people I talked to, many of them were saying the same thing, that they never participated in any political activity until they got fed up. Mm-hmm. So they just couldn't be silent anymore. They walked with the posters, and they attended the rallies, and they traveled to Washington. There were literally tens of thousands of people that marched on Washington. So what I'm seeing now, and I'm using my own sister as an example, for instance, she, would listen to me. She would go like, nah, whatever. We're on the same page, but at best she would go and vote. At best, But now she's walking around with a Trump T-shirt. She put finally a Trump bumper sticker on her car, and she's attending rallies. And I heard of many other people who did exactly the same thing. And guess what happened in the 2010 midterm election? In the words of Obama himself, he got shellacking. It was a historic victory, if you remember. We took back, I think, 62 House seats. Unheard of number of seats, 62. So, that's what matters. This taking pictures, Black Lives Matter, it's really meaningless. In the end.
I think a lot of people are afraid to not just speak out, but maybe join a movement, like a pro-Trump. Let's say like
they are.
Kind of
Absolutely they are. Yeah.
People are afraid to even do that.
They do.
People are afraid at work, in front of their families, in front of their friends, to even discuss if they would support this guy.
It's so true.
It's like self-censorship. People are afraid to speak.
It pisses me off to no end. As I walk around with this Trump shirt, there's so many people that either give me a thumbs up, or when they strike a conversation. I remember we were in Maine in a restaurant, and there was a gentleman who liked my T-shirt, and he thanked me for wearing it. He thanked me. Why wouldn't you wear it? If you think it's the right thing, why don't you? Why are you thanking me? It's like I'm doing something so brave. For crying out loud, supporting our legitimate elected, and all it says, Trump.
He's the actual president.
Yeah.
He's the president.
All it says, Trump pants.
The current president.
Excuse me. It just states the fact. Trump, president, Pence, vice president. That's all that it says. Make America great again. That's all there is on the T-shirt. That's it. And you're afraid wearing, this kind of shirt. What have we gotten to? Seriously? And that's what pisses me off to no end. To no end. I appreciate thumbs up, but why don't you do that? Are you scared? Yes, they are.
Of course.
They are. And I keep telling them the same story that I told you. Thankfully, there's nothing to be afraid about. Literally, nothing. I am a proof of it. Not just, occasionally here and there. I do it all the time, everywhere, every single day. The bigger the crowd, the happier I am.
Man, I wish you had the Trump shirt on today. That'd be hilarious. I wish I could have seen you with that live. In action.
No, like I said, here's the reason why. But I can show you my car. You'll see my car.
Really, I really appreciate what you're doing. Seriously.
Well, and what I'm doing. I mean, really nothing when it comes to think about it.
Just talking.
Exactly.
Sharing your experiences and
that's it.
Trying to educate people about.
That's it. It's like, I mean, there's nothing extraordinary that is being done. I mean, we were just having conversation. I had a conversation with the black fella a few minutes ago. Then we have a conversation with people pro or against. Well, I just put it on YouTube. There's nothing heroic about it or nothing extraordinary when you stop and think about it. The only difference, of course, that gives me a lot of legitimacy is the fact that I am from USSR. And that's what I guess, I wouldn't say hooks people, but at least kind of makes people think, well, I mean, this guy actually lived it. Mm-hmm. So he knows what he's talking about. You can't argue with a person like that. I mean, you can't.
That's the best I hear in the videos. There's someone's like, "Oh, what do you know about socialism?" You're like, "Oh, I was raised in the Soviet Union." It's like they kind of shut up, right? They're like, "Oh, all right." Well.
Exactly. And that's why, this professor ran away because he wants socialism. Okay, talk to me. Ask me what it's like living behind the Iron Curtain. He's a coward. He runs away. He doesn't want to talk to me.
It's a nice job. He's pampered. What is it? What's the word phrase they have?
Tenure.
Tenure. They have tenure.
Yeah, they have tenure.
Just enjoy their.
Yeah. Oh, he's complaining. He's complaining that he's not being paid on time. Yeah. Oh, what a shame. Yeah, go to socialism. I want to see how much you're gonna pay.
Essential socialist professor worker here. Essential worker.
Yeah, essential worker. Yeah. Spewing propaganda, of course. How can we live without it? All right.
Well. Thank you again.
My pleasure.
For talking to me for this long, man. I really do appreciate it. Once again, thank you for your video.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Sure. I'm not afraid shaking hands.
Coronavirus.
Coronavirus. Look, speaking of coronavirus.
I have my mask on. I have my mask here just in case.
Well, so do I, because you just have to have it these days.
I was going to ask the cops, like, do I have to wear a mask?
No. In the streets,
right?
No.
I don't go to the city often. I just see
No.
I can understand a store, but walking around the park with a mask on is a little bit weird.
Look, and again, using common sense. My employee's wife, who is a nurse, okay, when just the whole thing started, he got scared. Like everybody's unknown. I mean, I can understand. He said, I'm not going to come to work. I'm going to stay at home or work from home for like a week or two because he was afraid of his younger son. He was afraid that his immune system was sort of compromised. So he stayed at home for like 2 weeks until kind of dust settled a little bit. We learned that, yes, we can stay open because we're wholesale. Nobody's shutting us down. Yes, you can cross the state lines. We're good. If you're allowed to work, you can work, and we did, and we were allowed to work. So a month later, his own wife catches, I don't call it COVID-19, I call it Chinese communist, and I underline the word communist, Chinese communist virus, okay?
Okay.
And they live in a small 2-bedroom apartment, 4 of them, okay? Him, his wife, and their 2 kids. So, I mean, she is relatively young in her... Chinese people for Hong Kong, they're over there. Yeah. Free Hong Kong.
That's awesome.
So she got sick. She recovered. I mean, a few symptoms, but nothing major, like regular flu. He being afraid so much of this virus, he spent all this time with her. She recovered. They were in the same small apartment all this time. None of them, and they got tested. All of them got tested. She tested positive. They consistently tested negative.
They never got it.
Never got it. Being in the same room. Now, what are the chances of you walking along the street, even if somebody sneezes, which is, very rare, and again, they're wearing masks anyway, but even if they didn't, the latest research shows that you have to have significant number of viruses, and of course, by number, we're talking about millions, billions, if not trillions of them, for them to effectively make you sick.
Really? So it's
yes.
Like 1 or 2 viruses?
No. What do you mean 1 or 2 viruses? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Substantial amount. So even one sneeze might not do the trick. You will have.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, well, see, that's another thing. Speaking of information or misinformation, they are trying to portray the country as bad as possible. I mean, they try to fear. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. Of course they do. But so do whites and Polish and Jewish and Muslim and you name it. Every life matters. And usually it's the blacks who are killing blacks anyway. I mean, they don't. Why don't you stop for 1 second and think who is actually murdering who? Well, but that's another conversation. So no, I mean, I was walking around, and I'm always walking around without the masks. It's only when it's required that I would, put it on. How effective they are? Well, maybe they play some role. So if there are too many people around. Well, fine. For the time being, it's okay to put it on. But it's totally ridiculous walking around with a mask on.
That's the craziest thing.
Totally ridiculous.
What's going on? Like people walking masks, walking their dog.
But it goes back to the same fact that people just refuse to use common sense.
Follow directions.
Follow directions. Don't question their authority. And finally, it's a gregarious feeling. I mean, when you drive, when you walk someplace, I always, even back in the USSR, tried to be different. My father was not happy with me. It's like, why do all of us be like, not like everybody else?
Fall in line and
I said, I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to be like everybody else. And I never was, so at least I was trying not to be. Just use your brain. It's like, if everybody else does that, well, really? Do I have to do it? If everybody goes through this door, should I assume that the other door is locked? No, I'll push the other door. At least I'll give it a try. Most people, 1,000 people, 100 people will go through the open door, and all of them will go through the same door. While there's a door right next to it, they wouldn't even try to push it. So this is kind of, unfortunately, a lot of people have this kind of herd mentality, sheep mentality, and that's this unavoidable. I mean, this is human race. There's really, not much you can do about it, except the numbers. There are fewer people like that in America as opposed to other countries.
Right.
But it'll always be with us. What can you do? Okay, well, anyway. Well, we beat Farewell once already.
Yeah, we did. We did it once again for the camera.
Okay.
For real this time.
Okay, for real. My pleasure. Okay. So, did I give you my card?
You did not.
Oh, let me give you my card.
I love your card.
Sure. At least there's a memento. If I give my cards to other people, why not my followers? Why not give it to?
I love it. Oh,
here it
man,
is.
I love it. That's amazing.
Little memento.
Soviet citizen. I'm gonna put that right in my wallet. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Anytime. Okay. Be well.
Take care.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.